First of all, I'm going to tell you, the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition since 2003 has been fighting for automatic rights restoration, and we've been trying to either change it through policies or we were trying to change it through legislation. That hasn't been going too well. We did get a slight victory with Charlie Crist, was the governor, and he made the rights restoration automatic for nonviolent offenders. Y'all with me on this? If y'all hear me, clap once. If you hear me, clap twice. I don't know what the other line is, so let's go on. So what happened was that when the new administration came in, the very first thing that they did was to undo the policy changes in clemency. It was that important to them. And what they did was that they put in a provision that mandated that when after a person is done with their time, they have to wait out of 5 or 7 years to have their rights restored. Individuals, after repaying their debt to society, have to wait anywhere between 11 to 13 years before they find out if they have a chance. And the reason why I say if they have a chance, because the first quarter of that new policy change, what we've seen was that even after you qualified, and even after you went in front of the parole commission, or the parole board, or the clemency board, you still had less than 1% chance of getting your rights restored. And so what happened was, as president, you know, I really felt a burning desire to look into it even more. And one of the very first things that I noticed was they had 5-year category for nonviolent offenders, 7-year category for more violent crimes. Well, within that 7-year violent crime category was voting infraction. In Florida, it's a 3rd-degree felony if you vote without having your rights restored. And it's punishable by up to 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. So the first question I asked myself is, why would they put a nonviolent offense in the violent crime category? And then as I checked with the supervisor of elections, in particular Hillsborough County, you know, I was informed that Hillsborough County identified somewhere around like 17,000 individuals who were on the roster that should not have been on the roster. And they were primarily people of color. So immediately I thought in my head, I was like, man, if Hillsborough County has 17 and Florida has 65 counties, God knows how many people in Dade County, Broward County, Duval, you know, Orange County, whatever. And I estimated a total at around 90,000. Here you have 90,000 individuals that they participated in the Obama election, right? Stood to be removed from the voting process for a minimum of 13 years. But the way how Florida's policy are, basically you're going to get a lifetime ban. And so you'll never be able to vote. I would be remiss if I did not say that I understand that this is an election season and people are focusing on the right to vote, the right to vote. But when a person loses their right, their civil rights, not only do they lose their right to vote, but just as important, they lose the right to find safe and affordable housing. Because they are barred from Section 8. They are barred from a lot of housing communities which have that restriction within their bylaws. You know, and they're barred from a lot of employment. So here you have an individual that he gets out of prison and he can't find a place to live, he can't find a job, he can't feed his family. What is he supposed to do? You know, so as we were making these arguments in front of the Parole Commission, and we told them every piece of study that was done from whenever when all the way up to now conclusively shows that when you help an individual reintegrate back into their community, you reduce the chances of them recidivating. Now, the quicker we do it, then the greater our chances are. And there's like a 3 to 6 month time window of time frame that we have to work with. And I must say that all of the experts have concluded that the most effective way of helping the individual re-enter into the community is by bringing a holistic approach. And so they recognize the faith-based community as being the leader in helping people change their lives. Amen. And so as we made these arguments, they went ahead and they fell on deaf ears and they made these changes. Now, here's where it starts to get interesting. Immediately after that, we had House Bill 1355 that sought to restrict access of minorities to the voting booth. But within that provision, within the appropriations bill also, there was a tiny provision that allows for the privatization of prisons. Now, right after that, they passed a law that allowed juvenile offenders to be housed in adult facilities. So now, as I'm starting to look at all these things, I understand that when you talk about rights restoration or felony disfranchisement, it's not an isolated incident. Florida is the best state to see a comprehensive view of a covert assault against minority communities, African Americans and Latinos as well. So what happened was that when they made these changes, they ordered a study to be conducted. Well, the results came out and it showed that individuals whose rights were restored, it was 30,000 people in 2 years. Out of those 30,000 people who received their rights, 27,000 of them did not commit another offense. That's a recidivism rate of 11.4%. Compared to a 33% recidivism rate. Now, Florida allocates $20,000 to incarcerate a person each year. But they only allocate $3,500 to educate a child. You see where their priorities are at? Okay, so when I put together what I call the Republican argument, and I showed that those 26,000 individuals who did not reoffend saved the state over $545 million. That's enough money to cover any budget in the state of Florida. So when you're seeing that we get cutbacks in the police department, cutbacks in the fire department, cutbacks in healthcare, cutbacks in education, and the only crime, we don't have any money, I showed them, yes, we do have the money. And I gave them the ultimate Republican argument because I gave them a mechanism that would allow them to increase the tax base, reduce government spending, and reallocate billions of dollars to areas of need like education and healthcare, and reduce crime all at the same time. They rejected it. Reverend Herring said that we have to ask why. Well, I'm going to take it a step further. My law professor told me that not only do you have to ask why, but you have to ask the right kind of why. You know, and when I asked the right kind of why, I discovered the prison industrial complex system. So in a couple minutes, let me tell you how it goes. Because we follow the money. They always say follow the money. And you know, and so the question was, that I used to ask was, why didn't they accept this awesome plan? And the right question was, who stood to profit from it? And so when we discovered the prison industrial complex system that had contributed millions of dollars to these various, to the campaign of these various elected officials, this is what I found out. That, first of all, let me let you, I mean, you gotta heard it. You know they're building prisons. But see, how did they build these prisons? They don't look at the current crime rate to build prisons. What they do is that they look at the test scores from the 3rd grade. So already when your sons and your daughters and your brothers and your sisters, they're already plotting on them. They're building prisons to house them. And it's a beautiful market, don't get me wrong. I mean, a beautiful business plan. They create a market, they create a product and drive the market to it. So what happens is that they put these policies in our schools, and these zero tolerance policies, and you have a child, he skipped school one day, but they suspend him for 10. That don't add up. You know, and then we have our kids interacting with school resource officers or law enforcement as young as 8 years old, getting arrested, getting stigmatized, increasing the likelihood of them doing what? Dropping out of high school. And when you drop out of high school, they increase the likelihood of them committing delinquent acts. And when they commit those delinquent acts, then you stick them in an adult prison that you're getting $20,000 per head for. Now what happens is that at the same time, I'm a private prison owner, as these inmates are coming in and I'm getting $20,000 per year for them, because I'm a private prison, I own a private prison, I can then outsource them. So I can go to the local businessman and say, listen, you have 20 employees, you paying $20 an hour, lay off 19 of them, I'll give you 19 inmates and you pay them $2 a day. Now, the only problem I'm left with is at some point, my slave laborers are going to repay their debt to society. At some point, their sentence will be completed and they will leave my system. So what I had to do was, I had to create an environment that would ensure that they will return. I had to make it harder for them to get an education. I had to make it harder for them to vote. I had to make it harder for them to reintegrate, to find a job, to put a roof over their head and provide for their families, put food in their mouth. Because I know that if I can do that, chances are they're going to come back in my system so I can recycle them back out to that businessman. And that's why you've also seen the recent attacks against unions. Because as a business owner, if your employees were unionized, you just couldn't lay them off like that. So what we seen was that we were being attacked on various angles, but we were led to believe that these were all isolated incidents. So as I was looking at this and I discovered the prison industrial complex system, I discovered one of the greatest truth that was there. And I think, and this is my personal theory, a lot of people wonder why Martin Luther King was killed. The civil rights movement was already moving. He had that already going. Why would they kill him after they started? Well, he was in Memphis to attend to a sanitation strike. Martin Luther King was moving from a civil rights movement to an economic justice movement. And he was seeking to unite people of color. See, because this is not just a black thing. They would have you think so, but it's not. So what happened was when he was trying to unite these people, and let me tell you, that's one of the scariest things that the people in power see. When blacks and Latinos come together on an issue. So when I was looking at this prison industrial complex system that was attacking and degrading our neighborhood, I realized that these were the same people. You're talking about CCA and GEO Group, funded by the ALEC think tank. Well, these were the same people who were introducing legislation to criminalize immigration. These were the same people that were building detention centers to house immigrants. Now, for the first time in many years, I was able to say that we have a situation where we can sit at the table with our counterparts and look each other in the eye and say, your enemy is my enemy, and my enemy is yours. See, I understood now in Dade County, over 95% of the inmates in Dade County jail are people of color. See, they would have you think that immigration is an isolated incident that is relegated to a distinct minority group. And they'll have you think that criminal justice is an isolated area relegated to a distinct minority group. Because when you think of immigration and you close your eyes, you might want to think of a Mexican running across the border. But what about our Haitian brothers and sisters? What about other people of African descent? When you think of criminal justice, then the first thing you think about is a black man with gold tooth and De La's pants hanging off his butt. Those criminals, those black folks, they're the ones that's doing it. But the Hispanic and Latino population is growing in the prison complexes. And what we have is not two isolated incidents, but they're all the same thing, an assault against people of color.